Hello and welcome back to the Little Craft House. If you guys haven't met me before, my name is Nicole and I own the Little Craft House, which is a craft shop here in Perth, and I love making polymer clay earrings. So here on YouTube I do lots of tutorials showing how to make earrings, as well as doing a few colour mix tutorials as well. So if you missed it, last week I did a colour mix tutorial which mixed these beautiful colours out of Primo and Sculpey Souffle. So today we're going to be making two different styles of earrings. We're going to be doing these flower chain drops as well as a different flower. So these are the colours that we mixed in last week's colour mix tutorial. They are all beautiful autumn colours and the colour recipes are really simple for them. So I will link to the colour recipe tutorial in the description box of this video so that you can make them for yourself as well. So as I previously mentioned, we are going to make two different styles of earrings today. One being a flower chain style earring and the other being a daisy earring. Please feel free to take inspiration from this tutorial and or recreate it all for yourself. If you do recreate them, I would love for you to tag me so that I can see your creations, and you can tag me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, or here on YouTube. So I'm going to start by cutting out a bucket load of these teardrop shapes from each of the colours. I think I'm going to need about 10 teardrops per pair of earrings, but I'm just going to cut out a nice variety of them anyway, because I'm going to play around afterwards with the colours to see which ones match together and complement each other the best. So one thing that I like to do once I've cut the pieces out is just smooth around the edges like this. Just doing it at this stage as I'm lifting them off my tile, just smooths those edges and makes them nice and neat so that I don't have to worry about doing it afterwards. So next up I'm getting my little flower cutter. And again, I'm just going to cut out a nice range of flowers from each of these colours. And as you saw in my intro, I'm going to make a little chain of flowers and I'm going to make each side different. So I am just going to cut out a range of colours, and then that way I can mix and match them afterwards to make them into the combination that I like. So one thing that I really like about this style of earring, these chains of flowers, is that you can customize them to be as long or as short as you like. So you can just put a stud with one flower hanging underneath, but you can also do the three like I was wearing in the intro to today's tutorial. And I've also done them as twos as well. It's just such a great way to use a smaller cutter that you may have on hand, because you can make the earrings as long or as short as you want. I also really like that the daisy that we're doing today is with the teardrop cutters. It just also gives another use to a teardrop cutter other than just for doing that one standard shape. And so now I'm just going to cut out a couple of circles. These are going to be part of the daisy flower that we're doing. If you wanted to do stud tops as well, you could cut out some extra ones for that, but I'm just going to do them for my daisies at the moment. Time to peel away all the extra bits, and I'm going to just pop the colours to the side, and I'll use these for something else later. Okay, so at this point I decided that I probably wanted them to be hollow flowers. Now usually if I was to do hollow flowers, I would cut out the internals whilst they were still in the original piece of clay. It just kind of stops the shape from distorting a little bit, but I wasn't originally planning on them being hollow. So I'm just separating them now into the two types of flowers that I've done, one side the petal and one side the flowers. And I've just got to wipe this tile clean as I go, just so that those little bits of clay don't transfer onto the backs of my flowers. And I'm going to use this yellow topped one because it's a little bit smaller and fits in the center of the flower nicely, still giving me room to be able to drill the holes afterwards to link them all together. And one benefit with doing this size internal hole as well is that the little circles that come out make the perfect size for just little studs for when I do stud packs for my market stalls and things. So yeah, I do like this sized cutter as well for that reason. So now I'm happy with how these pieces are. I'm going to pop them onto my tray with a piece of baking paper and pop them to the side, ready for baking afterwards. I mentioned quickly about holes before. I like to drill my holes afterwards, after they're baked, rather than before. But if you were going to put holes in beforehand, now would be the time to do it before you put them onto the tray. You'll notice that I'm just patting these flowers down a little bit as well. As I'm lifting them up off of my tile, it's kind of distorting them a little bit just because they are a hollow shape. So I'm just pushing them down just gently, just to make sure that they're nice and flat on the tray. So when they bake, they will bake flat. Right, so now these ones are nicely to the side, we're going to start with our daisy flowers. So I'm going to start with two of the circles that I cut down before, and I am going to place them face down on the tile. So what was the base when I cut it out is now facing upwards, if that makes sense. And I'm going to start layering my petals on. So this is what I was talking about before, where I'm not quite sure what colour combination to choose. So I'm just going to sort of place them on really gently and work out the colour combination. And if I don't like it, then I'm able to pull them off. Otherwise, if I do like it, I will slightly push them down just to hold them nicely on and in place. So I wasn't overly happy with that grey one, especially since I've got a nice mustardy yellow colour sitting there. So that looks much nicer being on there. And so I'll just now do the same on the second one. So we don't need to add any clay adhesive or clay glue at all to hold these petals in place, because the raw clay will bond to the other raw clay during the baking and curing process. So we don't need to add anything additional to hold the pieces in place, but that is why I like to have that little circle on the back just to help bond it together. And then I like to put a piece in the center on top like this, because it just makes the nice center of the flower, but it also serves the purpose for holding the flower together. And so I am just applying a little bit of pressure there to the center just to make sure that it's all being held nicely together. So now I'm just using my dotting tool, and this has got a little, sort of like a little ball end on it, and I'm just pushing that into it to give it a nice textured finish to that centerpiece. If you wanted to add any texture to the petals, you could also do this, but I like to just leave them as is so that they're nice and shiny and nice and flat. But if you do want to put in some little details, you can also do that at this point. The flexi knife comes in really handy for lifting up the pieces off of the tile. So because we've been pushing it down, it is a little bit stuck on there. So the flexi blade will just scrape underneath and lift it up without distorting the shape of the flowers. So now it's time to pop it into the oven. I have a little benchtop oven here that I like to use, and I'm going to bake them for about an hour at the 120 to 130 degree mark. I did leave these in the oven to cool down, and now they're nice and cool. It's time to get on with our sanding and our drilling. So when it comes to the sanding, I have a little Dremel handheld drill, and I just put the buffing pad on it, which goes around the edges and just smooths off any of those little rough bits. So once it's all smooth and I'm happy with how they are, I do like to give them a wipe over with either a baby wipe or damp cloth just to get off all of that dust. And now I'm just going to arrange them on my I've got a little wooden block here, which I do my drilling on. So I'm just arranging them in the order that I want them to be, so that when I drill the holes, I know exactly which ones need 2 holes, which ones need a top hole, which one needs a bottom hole, and how I'm going to drill them. So yeah, just organising them into colour combinations. And you may spot here it changes one more time before I start my drilling. Now I do have to apologise, my hand is completely blocking your view, but when I drill the holes I do need to come from directly over the top and go down so that the hole is nice and straight. So unfortunately that meant that I ended up blocking the camera here, but you kind of get the point and can kind of see what I'm doing. And so again, I'm just using my Dremel drill. I just switched out the end pieces. So now I've got a small drill bit in. So that's what I'm using to drill the hole. And I've taken the buffing pad out. As you can see, I've kind of got it sitting to the side there. And when I drill my holes, I do it on a wood block, because that way as the drill bit goes through, it obviously goes into the block and not into my desk. Okay, so when it comes to assembling the earrings, I'm going to use my little flat nose pliers here. Try to use 2 rather than just 1. And when it comes to findings, we are going to use some of these large looped earring hooks. That way the hooks just open up and you can just thread the pieces onto them. And we are also going to use, do that back up, going to use some bowl studs, which I'm going with the gold findings because all of our colour tones are all of that goldy colour tones. So the gold findings will match in nicely. So I've got, oh, they're so fiddly, there's little gold bowl studs as well. And then with jump rings, I like to use the 8mm jump rings. Again, I'm just going to use gold. If my holes are drilled a little bit further down than what I usually do, I'll go a bigger jump ring, or if my pieces are particularly thick. But I do like the 8mm jump rings. I find these ones the most versatile, and yeah, that's my favourite size. So 8mm jump rings, my ball studs, and my large loop earrings. So now we can assemble them. And so here are all the final finished pieces. I've carded them up so that they're ready for sale for when I take them to either pop-up shops or to the markets. And yeah, I'm really happy with them. And of course, I couldn't help but keep a pair for myself because yeah, I just really love these ones so much. So anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed watching me create this little collection of earrings out of our colours that we custom made last week. And if you'd like to see more tutorials like this, then please subscribe to my channel, and also don't forget to jump over to Instagram and follow me over there, as I do daily inspiration and tutorials there too. So thank you once again for joining me, and I will see you again next week. Bye for now.